Alright guys, welcome back to another hand review here. Thought I'd look at this one spot. It's a single raise pot, SRP, just on the title screen there, SRP, short for single raise pot, where I thought I should go for a bluff, and I wasn't sure if I should do it. Negrano 38 is the name of the opponent there. I don't even have notes or tags on him yet. This is over on play now. So on the flop, like, we have a pretty easy bet. You just bet small on this particular board. And we've got a gut shot, no backdoor flush draw because we got the spades. There's no spade on the flop. Turn is interesting because we now pick up a double gutter, right? Any 7 or any jack gives us a straight. So I elect to go for it again, 2/3 size. And he calls. And then the river pairs the board. Spoiler alert, I wuss out and do not go for the bluff. But in hindsight, I don't think I have a better bluff candidate. It is a slam dunk bluff. I check it back, and he has the king 9. So clearly, we would be getting that hand to fold, but again, it's just against his entire range. What am I looking at here? What am I running into? Oddly, he has a double gutter as well. He has us just dominated. 7 gives him a straight, and jack gives him a bigger straight. So yeah, we would chop with the 7, lose to the jack. But anyway, I wanted to dive in, take a look at it. Give me one sec. We'll jump over to a couple of the starting ranges pre-flop, and then we'll look at PioSolver. I'll try and do everything a little bit quicker. The first video, study session number 1, I did a lot of explaining as if I were just talking to someone that didn't know poker all that well. All the tools, all the software we use, I broke it down. So if you want a better explanation for all of that, Stream Deck, random number generators, PioSolver, head over to study session 1 video, check that out. For today, I will, let me just pull it up here. I will break down 2 concepts and look at the hand. Just kind of, looking at the ranges, sort of how they work versus certain sizes, and then how we select the sizes. Like, why are you only using 30% pot on the flop, Trev, right? Stuff like that. So I'll kind of touch on that a little bit, and then we'll just look at the spot, and hopefully in the 3rd and 4th videos, I can not go through all of that because then we can just refer back to it. But pretty straightforward. So I'm over here on the Upswing course, the ranges, the heads-up course called the N-Boss system, which I paid for. And it's pretty straightforward. This is us on the button. IP in position, OOP out of position. We opened for 2.3x, right? We're playing 50 cents a dollar. We opened it up, and he calls. So let's look at his range out of position. And this is kind of where I wanted to touch on how the cutoff points work and why these ranges. Like, how do you figure out the ranges? Why should you only call these hands, right? When it's 2x. But when it gets bigger and bigger, as your opponent opens bigger and bigger, why can't you call with certain hands? So let's just take a quick look at our original one. So out of position versus an open, we were at 100 big blinds. We each had roughly $100 there versus my 2.3x size. So his king 9, as you can see, is just a slam dunk call. So he's just calling 100% with that exact hand. And he folds all the blue here. So if we look, so versus a 2x, just look at the folds for now. That's all I really wanted to concern with for this little part here. We don't fold much because you're getting such a great price. All right, so fold 14. All right, 2.25x open, fold 23. And then obviously the calls and 3-bets are going to change a little bit depending. But the big part is how many hands do we get to defend or play. All right, versus 2.3x, fold 25, 2.4x, fold 27, 2.5, fold 31, 2.75, fold 38, and a full 3x open. We're folding 44% of the time. And the reason for this is simple. I'll just put it back on the actual size we were going to use because that's how the hand went down. It's called raw equity or realized equity, right? If you just do the math, with all of the calculations, your hand strength really matters on the size of their open. What can I call? How much can I call to profitably continue with this hand, right? To like, does 6-2 offsuit down here have enough equity versus a 2.3x open? How often am I going to actually win the hand, or win the pot, sorry, with this hand? Not often enough to turn a profit, right? So raw equity is like, I take 6-2 offsuit right to the river. That's my raw equity. And you just run that millions and millions of times in like, you know, a simulator or a calculation, and it's going to give you a number. So that's the raw equity. And we say raw because the realized equity is much different. In reality, or realized equity, what if our opponent bets huge on a lot of turns? We're not seeing that fifth river card, right? So the realized equity is going to be considerably lower because we're not getting to the river all the time for every hand. So you kind of run it with the raw equity, you run it with the realized equity, and then you take that information, and that's kind of how they construct these ranges. It just does not have enough equity to profitably make that call for that size. So that's kind of how it works. So when you're seeing these ranges, it's real simple. The smaller, the better price you get, the more you call. And then the bigger they open, the less you call. And then you actually 3-bet a lot more, right? So like at 3x, we're 3-betting 26% of the time. At 2x, only 23% of the time, because we have a lot more profitable calls that will realize their equity. So anyway, I just wanted to explain the difference between raw equity, realized equity, and where the cutoff points are based on the size of the open. And that's kind of how it's all determined. That's how it's driven. It's all just pure math. You know, so if you're defending the 6-2 offsuit to, a 2.5x open, and I see that, like right away, I'm going, okay, that's a losing play right there. Like you shouldn't be defending that. You keep doing that in the long run, you're going to lose money. Sure, you can get lucky, right? Obviously, any two cards at any moment, you can win the pot, but in the long run, you keep doing it, it's a losing play. So that was sort of my starting point. Just looking at the opens and how you can defend. The interesting part here too is let's take a look at his king 9. So versus my 2.3x, we said he calls 100% of the time because he had king 9 offsuit. 2.4 still calling. 2.5, right? Remember, the ranges shift to which hands can no longer profitably call. And then we start adjusting our 3-betting range. So versus a 2.5x, now he's 3-betting king 9 a little bit. 2.75x, 3-betting the king 9 a little bit more. Versus 3x, 3-betting the king 9, a little bit more. You can see it increasing upwards. So that's just kind of how it works. And this is just at 100 big blinds. So let's do 2.3x versus 150. Still just a call. 200 big blinds, still just a call. 300 big blinds, still just a call. And that's at 2x. So 150. Let's run them through. Still just a call. Still just a call. So at a 3x open with 150. But what if we're super deep? Super deep, it doesn't like it. So the inverse happens. When you're super deep, you got to be careful because you're 300 big blinds deep. Right, so, but again, 100 big blind poker, which is usually what you start with, and that's the majority of what the play will be, 100 to 150 big blinds. Most guys don't play 200, 300 big blind heads up. I love it when they do because it gets really tricky and complicated, and you can apply a lot of pressure, but some guys will just quit and open a new table, stick within the 100, 150 big blinds or 200 big blind range, right? So, all right, so let's go take a look at PioSolver. So we will switch that up here. Let me just open it up. And you'll see as I hover over it, we have sort of three, I have 3 sims run. And I wanted to show kind of why we use certain sizes, right? So if we look here, this flop is Queen 8-6, and you can see the bet sizes in the bet size in position. is 30% pot. That's pretty much the size I use with one exception on queen high boards, just 30%. And again, it all has to do with you run a whole bunch of sims, supercomputers, all this stuff, and you figure out the expected value. How much EV am I gaining by using that, right? So you can see I just put in the one size. And if we go over here onto the exact opposite corner, you can see I had it save. I loaded it, queen 8-6 with a 30% flop size. You look at the EV IP where it says EV IP, and you can see 27.646. That is the expected value in chips. So you're expected to win with this size and the ranges we've put in. You're expected to win 27.6 chips. So in this case, it's 50 cents a dollar. So one chip is $1. So we would be looking at winning on average $27.6, right? So that's kind of how this works. You run the sim and you see what the expected value is. So this is for a 30% size, right? And now with a single size solution. And then you can try a 67% or 150%, 50% pot, and you keep running them all and then compare them side by side to see what yields the greatest EV, right? What if I put in 5 or 6 inputs and I wanted to play a mixed strategy of 5 different sizes on the flop? You can go and look at all of that, which is what I did here. I'll pull up the next one. I'll do a side by side. So I think it's this one. Yeah, and I'll minimize it. So you guys can see here, this time around, I put in 30, 67, and 150. Basically 1/3, 2/3, and the overbet of 150% pot. So let's go, if I pull it down, and we'll go back over to the other corner again. So now you can see the very far right, the EV of our single size with just using 30%, 27.6. And then on the left, using 3 different sizes, the expected value in position, 27.7. A tiny bit better strategy, right? So you do, yes, win a tiny bit more. And great if you're a computer and you can balance 3 different sizes. But if you had 3 different sizes on this flop, the game tree gets exponentially more complicated and difficult, because now when you bet 30%, you got to have aces in that line. When you bet 67%, you got to have aces in that line. When you have 150%, you have aces in that line, right? You got to balance every one of those different sizes out. You can't just only use aces when or only use 150 when you have aces. Because if someone ever figured that out, they'd always go, oh, when he uses this size, right? He has this. When he uses this size, maybe he's a bit weaker. So why complicate your life for a tiny gain in EV if you can even execute it properly? Just use single size solution, right? 30% pot. So that's all I wanted to show there. I'll minimize it. We'll go back to the 30% only. And it's just so much easier to play. And a lot of this was all solved, right? I got all these sizes from the course there that I paid for over in Upswing. They did so much work. Like I said, you're using cloud servers because it takes up so much memory and RAM to run all these sims, and you're doing all of these different sizes. Okay, let's cross-test them with these ranges and this board texture, and these ranges and this board texture. Now let's do it versus this open size and this open size. Now this stack depth and this stack depth. It is so many different sims to run. Then you take all the data and they look at it all, and then you can kind of bucket it and go, well, why would I complicate my life with all of those sizes? This one yields pretty much the same EV, and I'm just going to use that one size on this flop texture, because it captures the most expected value. That's your whole goal, is how do I win the most money? Keep my strategy simple and aim to win the most money, use one size. So 30% pot on queen high boards is where I was going with that. How do we come up with that number? This is how. It was all solved running all these sims. Okay. So this is the out of position player. We'll take a look here. Oh, I'll touch on one more thing before we dive in. Yeah, so this is his range, right? We know he's 3-betting. Again, I hadn't played Negreanu 38 or whatever his name was a whole lot, but I just gave him a pretty standard. He seemed okay-ish. I just gave him the standard range. He should be 3-betting, you know, ace 10 plus, ace 8 plus, ace 8 suited plus, all of his pairs. So he doesn't have them in his range because you normally 3-bet those. So he checks it over to us. And here you can see, this is the 30% size that I was talking about there. So when you use a small size, you bet very frequently. So 30% size, we're betting 78% of the time, checking 22% of the time. And if we look at the 9-5 suited I have, every other combo is a pure bet. The hearts, the diamonds, and the clubs, the reason being is there's hearts, diamonds, and clubs on the board, right? Solver likes having the backdoor flush draw. So with the spades, we just do it a tiny bit less because we don't have backdoor flush draw potential. I'm going to add one little thing here. So you guys can see it popped up the queen high. I have a little little chart here that you can see. So there's rainbow, other, sometimes you just run into other. This is sort of what the buckets I was talking about. Most of the time, we just bet 30% pot on these queen high boards, right? That's just the size to use. It gets the same EV compared to using other sizes. It elicits a lot of floats. He's going to be forced to continue with ace highs and king highs because, again, he's getting enough equity to continue because I'm stabbing so much with hands like my 9-5 suited. But you'll see the one there that says 82% size. So FD, flush draw, SD, straight draw with an 8 or a 9. So on a two-tone board where there's a flush draw possible and a straight draw, that's when the solver loves to use the big size. And guess what? I have it queued up here so you can see. So the exact same flop, only this time round, you can see I put in the queen 8-6, but 2 hearts instead of rainbow. And I gave it the two sizes, 30 and 82. And it absolutely loves the bigger size. So that's like the only exception. So when I'm playing heads up, I know 30% size except for the two-tone boards with an 8 or a 9. Because here's my thinking. Again, the solver gives you the data and then you got to figure out what it means. My hunch is he never has queens, right? He'd 3-bet. He never has 8s because you're supposed to 3-bet, or 6s is what we put in. I guess we could tweak that. Some guys 3-bet it pure, some guys don't at all, but we can tweak it. And I think, and like he never has ace queen, aces, kings. Like we're using a big size to target weaker queens, because we have the strongest queens. Ace queen, he shouldn't, because he 3-bets it. So we're targeting weaker queens, no sets, and a boatload of flush draws and straight draws. So all we're doing is saying, we've got the stronger range, we dominate all your biggest top pairs, and we're going to charge you the maximum on this super draw heavy board. So I kind of like it. So that's kind of, I think that's what the solver's doing, which is kind of cool. So whenever it's, you know, queen 8-6 or queen 9-6 two-tone, you can increase the size and extract, you know, maximum EV there. Anyway, just thought I'd share that. So that's my sizes that I use playing heads up. At some point, maybe I'll go through the whole thing. It's just a big a big list on all the textures. But for this particular hand, that's why I'm using a 30% size. So we'll go back to ours. So pretty straightforward. He checks, we bet. I gave him some options, right? He can raise 30% size, which is roughly 2.6 times the size of our little c-bet. With his exact hand, King 9 does get in there a little bit for some raises. Not all that often. Let's take a look here. So he's actually raising 16.8% of the time. And I have one more I'm going to bring up here for you, which is this one. So if you see here, this one has 3 sizes, 30, 67, 150. Only reason I do this was just to show you guys the check raising frequencies and how drastically they drop. So if we bet 30%, his king nine. So here it looks, when you use all three sizes, the solver says, hey, go ahead and raise 20% of the time. Small size, you do a lot of check raising. If your opponent bets 2/3 now, king nine is almost a pure fold. And look at this check raising size. It gets cut in half. You're down to 10%. And if someone, not that you should, but just wanted to show you as an example, king nine still pure fold. If I did 150%, your raising goes down to 4%. So not a crazy concept. I mean, I'm sure you guys all knew that, but just wanted to show you using PioSolver. Small size, high frequency, you check raise a lot. Bigger size, right? You don't bet as big when you use a bigger size, or you don't bet as frequent when you use a bigger size, and you don't check raise as often either. Anyways, as played, he just called. So let's take a look. Call. And what did we have here? We had a 10 of hearts on the turn. And I'll show you my turn sizes here too. So he checks it to us. And my 9-5. So this is where I actually make, I think, it's not a mistake, but I didn't know. I thought for sure it was like a pure bet. Obviously, it likes the 9-5 of hearts a whole lot more because you have the backdoor flush draw. But I'm only supposed to bet by the looks of it. Yeah, like 30+% of the time here. And I went for it with 2/3. And I'm just going to show you the sizes here. How do I do this here? So same thing applies if I turn on... I got to lean back a little bit so you guys can see me. So the top there, right? Non-paired turn barrel. This is the sizes I use. So rainbow boards, where there's, no straight possible on the flop, and it's not paired. It's not a monotone flop. 3 of a kind. No flushes possible. These are my turn sizes. So obviously flush and paired and flush don't apply because there's no possible flush on the turn. It was a rainbow flop. Any pairing, I use 67. When 2 or 3 straights are possible, I use 67. When 1 straight is possible and it's an overcard, so in this case, overcard to the top card on the flop. So overcard would be a king, I guess, in this case. 1 straight possible undercard, we use 100% size. Ace-X, we use 150. A brick undercard, we use 150. So if the turn was like 2 of clubs, right? We're gonna overbet on this turn. Like it's a pretty bricky, dry turn there. So these are the sizes. And then normally when I'm running the sim, I know these sizes. I just put 1 size on the turn. For this one, I did put all 3 sizes just to kind of take a look at it. And I'll hit control here and I shall go down. So let's say I went to that 2 of clubs. There's clubs and we go all the way down to the deuce. Oh, went too far. So you guys can see, like I put the sizes in and the solver on that brick undercard loves the bigger size, right? So again, these are how solvers work. You figure out the information and why, and it just, this is yielding the best EV possible. That's the better way to play to capture the most money. So that's kind of how you come up with those sizes and those strategies, right? Same thing, I think Ace-X. Yeah, like it does do a mix of all of them, but when you see a mix of all of them, you're not going to try and execute that strategy. In the top right corner, all you do is you really just go, which one is being used? Sorry, I can't see there. Which one is being used the most? And you just go, that's the size I'm going to use, right? So that's kind of how it works. And then you can also do it in here too. So like I can hit compare with PioSolver. Not sure if you guys can see that. I'll pull it over here. And it says, hey, what do you want to compare the EV for? From using, 67, 100, or 150 is what I gave it. So let's say I went between 100 and 150. Wow, there's a huge contrast. So on that Ace-X, where all the color is, wow, like if you look at the 8s, I'll just turn this off for a second here for you. if you look at the pocket eights and then zoom in, can I do that? Zoom in over here. Like, it says bet 150, you yield 178 chips or $178 on average. Betting 67%, 171, a difference of +6 or 6 chips, right? $6 in this case, because we're using 50 cents a dollar as the match. So it says bet 150. So you can compare the EV of the different sizes right inside the program, which is super cool. Yeah, so in the future, again, this is a longer video, and I'm not going to explain this every time, but that's how it works. I'm just putting single sizes in from now on, moving forward in all the other videos, because then I can run the sims faster. Obviously takes a lot longer the more sizes you use. But anyway. Okay. So with 9-5, we do end up betting. Oh, wait. I got to get back to my turn here, which was the 10 of hearts. So I just hold down control. It's kind of nice to be able to just go... Let's get down to our 10 and go over to the heart. So with our 9-5, we did end up betting. So we bet 2/3. With his king 9, he still has a pure call when he has the double gutter, and he still does a little bit of raising. But he calls. So I'm not going to get too much further into it. I know I talked a whole bunch there. And it was really just trying to decide, once I get to the river here, what my best bluffs are. So, like I said, I chickened out, and it looks like I have one of the absolute best possible bluffs to use on this board. And I'm trying to figure out why. So if I look at it, right, he never has queens, pocket 8s or pocket 6s, because that's kind of what we gave him as a range. Queen 10 suited 3 bets, 8-6 suited 3 bets, pocket 10s 3 bet, 7-9 suited 3 bets. So yeah, I guess I should have taken an extra second before snap calling, or like I should have went for it. And I think too, when you do a low frequency bet on the turn, it becomes a high frequency bet on the river. Like that 9-5 suited, we were only supposed to bet 30% of the time. On the turn with our 9-5 of spades, no backdoor flush draw. But often I think the solver says, if you're going to do that low frequency bet on the turn, it becomes a high frequency bet or bluff on the river. So yeah, one of the best possible hands to use. And it likes the overbet size. Like, just never use the 2/3. So I gave it 30%, 100%, 150% pot. These are my river sizes. Again, I won't go through all of it, but basically same thing applies. It's just you want to have one size on the flop, one size on the turn, given the board texture. 2 sizes on the river captures the most EV. So in this case, we use 2/3. So we're going to use mainly 67 or 150% pot. Sometimes we use, a jam or 100% if we don't have thin value bets. Anyway. Yeah, let's just take a look here. So how many full houses do we have? So we have a lot of boats. That's probably why. So do we have quads? We have quads with 6s. Yes. We have all the full houses. He has very few. Like queen 8 suited, I think. No, queen 6 suited he has. So yeah, if we have this many full houses, you want to jam with, you want to bet huge or go all in or overbet with your best hands. So we have so many boats. We have the Jack 9s and the 9-7s, which are super strong hands, so we want to use the big size. So our cutoff becomes trips. So if we have all the boats and all those big straights, our strongest hands, we're going to go for the big size. When we get down to our trips, like Ace-6, Jack-6, all of that, how many do we have here? When I click on it, next to none. We don't have many trips, just based on the way the hand was played. But you can see if we did, you start sizing down. You use the small size as the strength of your hand gets down there, and then you stay super polarized with all of them. Over pairs, again, we're using a small size with aces and kings. Top pair, We mainly check back, other than queen 10, because it's the stronger 2 pair there. Under pair, just jacks. So of course we're checking jacks. Second pair, this would be turning the 10. We're not going for value, we just check it back. Third pair, this is what, the 8s. Again, not going for value, we just check it back. Low pair, ace highs, we're just checking back, hoping that we're good. Same thing with king highs. And then nothing. So this is our nothing that we get there with based on betting twice, right? So this is the range we get to the river with the line that we took, which was bet, bet. So it balances out by saying, these are your best bluffs in the overbet size. These are your best bluffs in the small bet size. Again, right? We got two sizes for value. We need 2 sizes for bluffs. Completely balanced, very hard to play against, right? Because we're going to be putting value bluffs in the small side starting when we hit trips. Well, we need bluffs to balance that out in the small size. And then when we have our full houses and our straights and we want to use the big size, well, we got to have bluffs to balance those two, balance those out in the big size as well. And 9-5 suited was just a slam dunk. Bluff for the big 150% pot. Anyways, that's basically it. I know I kind of rambled on. I don't want to do that in the next video. I will keep them much shorter. But yeah, so when we bet here, let's just take a look. Let's say we overbet. What does he do with his kings? His king 9. He doesn't have much left at that point. He just folds. Oh, wait, no. I have this checked. Sorry. Yeah, his king 9's a pure fold. Anyways, hope you liked the video. It was just a look, trying to identify the spots. I wanted to explain a little bit how the solvers work. I will not do that in the next videos just because it takes so long. But if you just see guys using the videos and you're like, or using the solvers and you're like, I don't understand how it works. Or if you see someone saying, hey, I only, heads up, single size solution. Why? What does that mean? What does single size solution mean? Hopefully this sheds some light on how that works or how it came to be. And then in the next couple, we'll just focus on the hand, bet, call, whatever, and just look at the ranges and see kind of how we do it. Just trust that the sizes I've put in are proper and right, instead of just ripping it all apart as to how that number came to be. I feel like that's kind of like when you were in high school or college and you got your calculator and you're entering all the formulas. It's like, do you want to just trust that the formula works, or do you want to rip apart the formula and learn why it works? I feel like I just explained why the formula works instead of just trusting that it does the job it's supposed to. So anyways, thanks guys. Thanks for watching. I will end it here and we'll get on to the next one. Oh, I had it on backwards. So, oops. Yeah, that one was supposed to be off. But there's a couple pictures of me.